Today we look at the GTX 1650 Super in 2023 to see if this graphics card at 1080p can really hold up with today's modern games. We will be testing Watch Dogs Legion, Far Cry 6, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Forza Horizon 5 and Cyberpunk 2077. So let's jump right into those benchmarks now. Our first game, Watch Dogs Legion, 1080p low, an average of 81, a minimum of 19 and a maximum of 119. At 1080p medium, an average of 74, a minimum of 40 and a maximum of 107. And at 1080p high, an average of 63, a minimum of 34 and a maximum of 91. So as we can see, even at 1080p high, we do hit an average of 60 FPS or more here on Watch Dogs Legion, so this is a really good start for the 1650 Super. Our second game, Far Cry 6, 1080p low, an average of 94, a minimum of 88 and a maximum of 105. At 1080p medium now, an average of 81, a minimum of 73 and a maximum of 104. And at 1080p high now, an average of 74, a minimum of 62 and a maximum of 88. So again, in our second title, we have a 60 FPS average or above at 1080p high. So again, Far Cry 6, very playable on the 1650 Super, so again, great result. Our third game, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, 1080p low, an average of 116, a minimum of 88 and a maximum of 190. At 1080p medium, an average of 85, a minimum of 66 and a maximum of 137. And at 1080p high now, an average of 73, a minimum of 55 and a maximum of 126. So again, over 60 FPS average for 1080p high in our third title, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. So again, a really great showing for the 1650 Super, and this is really promising to see, even in 2023, that we are really hitting some really good frames here, and it's keeping up really well even for a 4GB VRAM card. Forza Horizon 5 now, 1080p low, average of 107, minimum of 94 and a maximum of 127. 1080p medium, an average of 90, a minimum of 78 and a maximum of 105. And 1080p high, an average of 79, a minimum of 67 and a maximum of 92. So again, 60 FPS or more, even at 1080p high average, is really impressive here, especially for Forza Horizon 5, which is a fairly demanding game, but not too demanding, but again, it's fairly demanding. 1080p, it's really keeping up well, the 1650 Super, so a great showing here in our fourth title. And finally, Cyberpunk 2077, 1080p low, an average of 75, minimum of 37, and a maximum of 104. 1080p medium, an average of 74, minimum of 29, a maximum of 102. And finally, 1080p high, an average of 73, a minimum of 30 and a maximum of 104. So again, even in Cyberpunk, we have a 60 FPS average even at 1080p high. Now, I will say there was FSR quality set here, so FSR did help, and potentially there might have been FSR in the other titles, but I didn't actually check the settings when I was running the benchmarks, unfortunately. I don't think there was FSR on the other titles, but Cyberpunk does use a little bit of FSR, which did help the frame rate, and I would recommend using FSR because it will boost the frame rate for these older graphics cards like the 1650 Super if you don't have the DLSS support like you would with the RTX 30 series. So overall, what do I think of the 1650 Super in 2023? Yes, this is a good graphics card overall. Now obviously the 4GB VRAM limit is going to limit you, unfortunately, and it is going to be quite detrimental in 2023, but if you can kind of look past that and get the graphics card for a good price. I only got it for £80, which is a really good price. I mean, if you can get it for 100 or less, I would say go ahead, go buy it. I would say if you're paying any more than £100, I probably would go up to the GTX 1070 and obviously get 8GB of VRAM, which is obviously going to help out a lot in your 1080p titles. Now, I haven't tested some other titles like The Last of Us and Hogwarts Legacy, but they're not so optimized as these titles and haven't been out for so long, so I don't think it's quite fair to put those titles up against this graphics card personally. Obviously, I want to know what you think of this graphics card below. Let me know in the comments. Would you still get a 1650 Super, or would you just not even look at it? I do think if you're doing a flip PC like I've got planned, a 1650 Super, if you can get it cheap enough, under £100, it's still worthwhile. Even for 2023, this is still a pretty decent graphics card. card, and if you can find it cheap enough, I would go and get it. So I hope you like this little review of the 1650 Super, guys. Obviously drop me a like to help the channel, drop us comments if you have comments on the 1650 Super or other recommendations for what graphics cards you want me to test in the future, and obviously subscribe to see more content from me. So hopefully you like that one, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.